the FAA, which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg. A real winner. That guy's a real winner. Do you know how badly everything's run since he's run this Department of Transportation? He's a disaster. He ran his city into the ground, and he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bull. 45,000 people, and he's run it right into the ground with his diversity.
In the wake of the tragic mid-air collision between a military helicopter and an American Airlines flight that left 67 people dead, Donald Trump is doing exactly what we expected him to do: demonizing and inciting hatred against marginalized groups instead of informing the American public. In stark contrast, now former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg posted this tweet calling out Trump's response to the crash as despicable, going on to say, quote, "As families grieve, Trump should be leading, not lying. One of his first acts was to fire and suspend some of the key personnel who helped keep our skies safe. Time for the president to show actual leadership and explain what he's going to do to prevent this from happening again." But we all know that's far too much to ask of the clown show that is the Trump administration.
This was a job that had to be superior intelligence, and we didn't really have that, and we had it. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before. I put safety first. Obama, Biden, and the Democrats put policy first. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities. That is amazing. And then it says FAA says people with severe disabilities are most underrepresented segment of the workforce, and they want them in, and they can be air traffic controllers. I don't think so.
Let's just call this for what it is. Throughout this unhinged press conference, Trump is not just trying to pass the blame onto Biden and the Democrats, but also onto anyone working in the industry who isn't a completely able-bodied white man. That's it.
They put a big push to put diversity into the FAA's program. The initiative is part of the FAA's diversity and inclusion hiring plan, which says diversity is integral to achieving FAA's mission of ensuring safe and efficient travel. I don't think so. I think it's just the opposite. A group within the FAA, another story, determined that the workforce was too white, that they had concerted efforts to get the administration to change that and to change it immediately. This was in the Obama administration just prior to my getting there. And we took care of African Americans, Hispanic Americans. We took care of everybody at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It's one of the reasons I won. But they actually came out with a directive, too white. And we want the people that are competent.
I think what bothers me the most about Trump's comments so far is his just blatant disregard for the families who lost loved ones, the loved ones who are no longer here because of a mistake made in the aviation industry, and the fact that his first instinct is to demonize and insult marginalized communities as if they're the reason why this happened. Like, oh yeah, DEI, we're looking into it. That could have been a reason. How heartless and evil do you have to be to point to that when so many people are grieving? And you decide to say something outlandish like that, and there's no evidence pointing to that whatsoever. It's gross. What it is that he wants to intimidate and demonize anybody who doesn't fit into MAGA's perception of a qualified American. Again, how do you do that? I mean, it's not surprising. It's still incredibly deflating and disappointing that the President of the United States is blaming DEI for a tragedy right out the blue with no evidence. He's lying.
Are you saying this crash was somehow caused and the result of diversity hiring? And what evidence have you seen to support these claims?
It just could have been. We have a high standard. We've had a much higher standard than anybody else. And there are things where you have to go by brain power. You have to go by psychological quality, and psychological quality is a very important element of it. These are various very powerful tests that we put to use, and they were terminated by Biden, and Biden went by a standard that's the exact opposite. So we don't know, but we do know that you had two planes at the same level. You had a helicopter and a plane. That shouldn't have happened, and we'll see. We're going to look into that, and we're going to see. But certainly for an air traffic controller, we want the brightest, the smartest, the sharpest. We want somebody that's psychologically superior, and that's what we're going to have.
It is so incredibly irresponsible for the most powerful man in the world to say something like this, not even 24 hours after the tragedy occurred. He is so racist that he is focused on blaming marginalized communities and essentially saying they don't have the brain power to uphold high standards. I mean, what is wrong with you? And the reason why he's doing this, to me, is because he wants to paint a picture that black people, women, other people of color, LGBTQ plus community, that they're unfit for these jobs. They don't deserve to get jobs in high places, and that they're not capable of performing high stress and very difficult jobs. That's what I feel is motivating him to really demonize and insult marginalized communities so that people see them as inferior. That's what I think is motivating him to do all these things.
We don't even yet know the names of the 67 people who were killed, and you are blaming Democrats and DEI policies and air traffic control and seemingly the member of the U.S. military who was flying that Black Hawk helicopter. Don't you think you're getting ahead of the investigation right now?
No, I don't think so at all. I don't think with the names of the people. You mean the names of the people that are on the plane? You think that's going to make a difference?
Does it comfort their families?
They
to
are
hear you
a group of
blaming
people
DEI
that have
policies?
lost their lives. If you want a list of the names, we can give you that.
I'm trying to figure out how you can come to the conclusion right now that diversity had something to do with this crash.
Because I have common sense, okay? And unfortunately, a lot of people don't.
And like clockwork, Trump's loyal stooges fall in line with the blatant misinformation he's spreading.
When you don't have the best standards in who you're hiring, it means on the one hand, you're not getting the best people in government, but on the other hand, it puts stresses on the people who are already there.
When we deal with safety, we can only accept the best and the brightest in positions of safety that impact the lives of our loved ones, our family members. And I think you make a really important point on that, Mr. President.
The era of DEI is gone at the Defense Department, and we need the best and brightest, whether it's in our air traffic control, or whether it's in our generals, or whether it's throughout government. So thank you for your leadership and courage on that, sir.
And just in case you forgot,
we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
Because of DEI, it begs the question: when you see a black pilot, you wonder. You say, "I hope they are qualified." I wouldn't think that if the CEO of United or these airlines would reject DEI and say excellence is the ultimate standard.
there are so many dangers in letting rhetoric and misinformation about DEI programs and diversity in general go unchecked and unchallenged. One of them is that corporations and people are going to actually internalize this, right? And that's going to affect how they hire people in the industry. Not everybody, of course, but there could be a shift, right? And, well, the president is saying this. So this is the most powerful man in the world. If he's saying all these things about diversity, equity, and inclusion and how it's so terrible and these people are not fit for the jobs, well, maybe there's some truth to that, right? It just reinforces so many stereotypes, and then it's going to harm all these marginalized communities, from how they're treated just in public to whether they get jobs, get callbacks from different corporations or companies that they're trying to get hired for or get jobs for. Like, you cannot underestimate how influential Donald Trump is in infecting, because that's what he's doing, infecting the minds of millions of Americans who, some may already have that belief, right? But others are like, oh, that's my leader. He's saying this, so it's true. And now you're just hurting so many innocent Americans who are just trying to do better for themselves and for their families because of your racist beliefs, your prejudice, your bias, and believing that, yeah, it's only about the white people, the white man. That's who's qualified. Okay? We got a long, long way to go. For Rebel HQ, I'm Chris Williamson. We'll see you next time.